7th, 1965. A young woman is sitting on a bus in Alabama. She refuses to give up her seat to a white person, which was the law of the time down there. The ACLU rushes to her defense and wants to make her the face of the Anti-Discriminatory Acts and Segregation Acts of the South. Fortunately, this person's name is Claudette Colvin. She's 15 and she is pregnant. The ACLU decides not to use her as the face, and they wait. 8 months go by, and that's when Rosa Parks happens. She does the same thing, refuses to give her seat up to a white person. Within that time, a young, charismatic leader named Martin Luther King Jr. becomes a prominent person in the anti-segregation unit. And because everyone is looking at him and everyone starts listening to him, they decide to send him down as one of the major faces to defend Rosa Parks. If the ACLU decides to go in the spring with Claudette Colvin instead of waiting 8 months later, Martin Luther King Jr. is a person in Alabama that you've never heard of. Who is Giuseppe Zingara? I don't know. He's the guy with the gun. Took 5 shots, killing the mayor of Chicago. Why did he do this? Well, he was standing on a wobbly chair. He wasn't aiming for the mayor of Chicago. He was aiming for the newly elected President of the United States, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Giuseppe Zingara wasn't standing on a wobbly chair. He hits his target. We swear in his running mate, FDR's running mate, John Nance Garner, a person who his political ideology stated that he was against a package of legislation that we know of as the New Deal if we don't survive the Great Depression. Sinks have these things called washers. They're put on the joints of the pipes within your sink to make sure that they don't leak in the fixtures. That's what giant O-rings are. They're giant washers that are used on an SRB, the solid rocket boosters that are put on spacecrafts that get blasted into space. What they're doing is they're making sure that pressurized hydrogen does not leak out of the SRB, because pressurized hydrogen is highly flammable, and if it does leak, kaboom! And these O-rings, they've been tested under every single condition you can imagine. Everything but cold. They weren't tested to see if they worked if they got cold. Why would they get cold? It's going to be launched from South Florida. Well, January 28th, 1986, a cold snap hits Florida, dropping the temperature to 18 degrees. O-rings stop working at 40 degrees. So, 17 seconds after liftoff, the Challenger converts itself into a bomb and kills everybody on board. Rosa Parks, the Giuseppe Zingara killing FDR possibly, and the O-rings not being tested killing the members of the Challenger all demonstrate one thing. The world is a series of dominoes. Every historical account that we have, we can actually track back the individual steps and actually imagine, what if we move one domino out of the way? What world would we be in? What would be in the history books? What would I be teaching you? We're all of us, a series of steps, series of decisions, series of dominoes that make up our lives today. Each decision we make has unintended consequences, good or bad. In history, we get to see it play out in many different people's lives in many different scenarios. Let's get at it. In today's lesson, I want to pose something to you. Just a brain teaser, if you will. I want to see how you think. So let's imagine there's a student in a school that doesn't provide free lunches like our school does. And let's imagine this student in this school regularly steals food from said school. Goes in the cafeteria, steals the food daily. He's proud of it. He's like, this is awesome. In his own mind, he's like bragging to himself. It gives him an ego boost. So he's happy that he does this. He thinks he's clever that he does this. He does it almost daily. Now let's imagine the school finds out who that student is. We finally found the guy. The person has been stealing our food. And they find out that he's pretty excited about that he does it and he gets away with it. What should that school do to that student? I want you to ponder this question. I want you to even do me a favor. Tell me sometime right now, what was your initial reaction to this? What should the school do to that student? Think about it. Add a little bit of time to ponder the question of what you should do to this student who has stolen food from the school and is even proud of it. what that school should have done to that student. Now that you've thought about it, let me give you some more context. This student was abused by his mom. This student was not given food by his mom, gone days without eating, barely getting water to drink. This student, fearing starvation, decided to steal food from the school. This is a true story about a child. Child called It. Young man wrote a book about the torture that he experienced as a child by the hands of his own mom. That's why he was stealing the food. Now, you may have been, before I told you the context, you might have thought, you know what, maybe this student needs to be punished. He's stealing food and he's excited about it. Some of you might go, maybe there's more to the story, Mr. Snow. And obviously there is. And this poses the question we're going to answer today. What is more important, the end result and learning that, or the steps that get you to that end result? Today, we are going to take the path that is a little bit longer to walk, my friends. We're going to go the long road, and we're going to look at the steps that led to the villain, Hitler, of World War II. But we're going to look at the steps that led him to World War I. And will eventually turn into the man that we will see take over Germany and do atrocious, despicable, inhumane things that will last in history books as long as we keep writing. Today, we're going to look at the context, the dominoes that led to Adolf Hitler. Doing today, because you're not here in the classroom, and if you are in the classroom, you can do this on your own again because we talked about it in class and it's interesting stuff, is you're going to take those steps. You're going to look at those dominoes and you're going to start pushing them over to find out how and why Hitler becomes what he is. Now, this is only the steps to World War I, but these steps are definitely going to impact him when he gets to World War II, which we're going to talk about after winter break. Now, there's a document that I'm attaching to this email that you guys should look at, and it's going to have about 6-7 pages. And these 6 or 7 pages deal with Hitler's life using primary sources, information from him, information from his sister, and other people that are going to tell you what his life was like. It's going to talk about his home life, how he was beaten by his dad. It's going to talk about his unsuccessful art career and not being actually let into the college that he wanted to. It's going to talk about his social life where he actually imagines having relationships with people that actually don't have a relationship with. He's imagining girlfriends, basically. It's going to talk about his life in Vienna and how he was poor and he was basically almost starved and he was malnourished and he was like this thin, like not able to do physical things guy. You're going to talk about the death of his mother, which impacts him because he chooses this art school and then he's not able to actually spend time with his mother as she's dying. It's going to talk about his political interests and how it actually is anti-Semitism, his prejudice against Jewish people begin here with his political ideology that he hears while he's desperate. And it's going to talk about him joining the military and actually not being allowed to join one military because he was too weak. I want you to read these documents. I want you to look at them and understand that these dominoes lead to the events, not only his life in World War I, but the events that lead up to World War II and all the atrocities that come out of it. This is your job now. Read them. Understand this stuff. Try to understand the steps that took to make this guy. Remember, history is not good guys versus bad guys. That's simple. It's complex, and that's what these documents are. It's the complexity of Hitler. To understand what can make somebody like this. Doesn't justify it, but we can understand why and how these things happen. Get at it. Read it.